So what I'm gonna do is,
Can't even reach back. Lord have mercy. That's why I miss Jailyn so much.
I know.
I can't move stuff. I miss my baby so much. I need my baby so bad.
I know.
We think they need us. We need them too.
Yeah, we need them.
I need my baby. I cry.
More than life, we do.
I mean, my world is basically glued out my baby. I mean, just simple stuff around the house just made a difference, you know. Looking up stuff, gadgets, technology. Jailyn was my tech guy. I'm here. Okay, I'm on the live, but I can see you, but how do I?
Push. Okay, wait a minute. Let me invite. I'm gonna invite you.
I just send a record.
Okay. Okay.
You must rotate your phone, John. Okay.
I'm gonna turn this. Let me see. All right. Say something so I can see if I hear you on this live.
Hello, testing.
Okay. I'm gonna turn this phone off because I'm gonna go live from my TikTok. They ain't gonna be able to see you, but they'll be able to hear you.
Okay.
Okay.
So I can turn the camera off with just my audio.
You can do audio. I mean, you can yeah, you can just be on live. You can turn the phone, you can hang up. Okay.
I didn't hang the phone up? Hold on.
Okay, I just did. Say something. Turn your volume up. You can't hear me? Let me see. Still can't hear me? How about now? Can you hear me? No. Let me call you back. I'm gonna call you back and just. Okay.
Well,
can you hear me? I mean, I wonder if they can hear me.
I can't hear you on the live.
You can't. Okay, let me see something.
You want me to leave the broadcast and come back in?
No. What I'm gonna do is, let me see if it's this mic. Wait a minute. Okay. Now, can you hear me now?
I don't know because you're on the phone. Can you hang up the phone?
Okay. Well, I'm gonna turn it down. Can you hear me? Can you hear me on the live? Oh God, I don't know what the hell. I ain't have this problem. Wait a minute. Can you hear me? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Turn your device up. Turn your device up. Are you on your laptop? Okay, because I'm trying to understand why you can't hear me. Go out, come back in, let's try it. All right. Oh, you can? It's got to be something on your part. Let's try it again. Okay, yeah.
Hello, can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
I can hear you. Okay.
Probably because you was on the phone.
Yeah.
I don't think you have two audios going on at the same time. I wonder why you can't see me now.
It says joining.
Okay. So we gonna wait a few minutes. I'm gonna get live on my TikTok.
Okay.
I want this conversation to happen for real, because people need to understand, and it's one of them situations where we always wait until it happens to us. No. We got to do better than that.
Yeah, they laid $1 short. And I get it. It could be a thing where, like you said, you just live in your bubble.
Mm-hmm.
But we got to come out of our comfort zone
before
it knocks on your door. That's the whole reason why I'm coming out of my comfort zone, because this advocacy work that I'm enthralled with doing right now is not just about Jailyn. I said that from the beginning. It's for you too. It's so that you don't have to endure what I've been through.
That's right.
And the only way that I can truly overcome it is to make the community safer. Otherwise, it just, for me, it creates more PTSD in me, being that I have lost my young baby in the manner that I lost my baby. I can't sleep at night until I know this stuff, that we can come up with a cure for this stuff, a solution for this stuff. And I know that disenfranchisement plays a big part in it. Disenfranchisement plays a big part. We don't have a village, the structure that we need, because in any other community, they can go to anybody, any mom and pop. The Jewish community, they even have their own, health and human services office separate from the state, because they help their own. And we're capable. We have all the resources, the information, the technology. We have all of that to do these things. And the minds. We have the brains. We need the hearts. That's what's absent. The spirit to do these things.
I'm Facebook Live right now. I don't know what's going on. Hey, TikTok, I'm live with the Mother of Jailyn Jones. Y'all know about Jailyn Jones because we have been sharing the story. Now, I have the mom here today, and this is a public service announcement for parents. Okay, I'm not just going to say parents who have lost children. I'm going to say for all parents. Okay, all parents. This is a public service announcement for you all. You have to understand really deep what parents go through losing a child, and especially losing a child in the magnitude that Jailyn left this earth. Now, I'm going to let her tell you all her story, introduce herself, and like I said, this is a public service announcement for every mother, every guardian, grandmother, auntie, uncle, even if you don't have children, okay? And you have children, we all have, every child in our community, let me take that back, because every child in our community is ours. Whether we gave birth to them or not, they're our children. So go ahead, Miss Jones.
Good morning, Miss Rose. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for having me and for giving us this platform to be able to advocate, like you said, not just for parents who lost their children, but for our community in general. Because I think the primary reason why I'm so engaged in doing this work is so that we don't have what happened to me become a norm in our community, and it's becoming commonplace. My name is Alexis Jones McDaniel, and my son was Jailyn Jones. He was the 17-year-old high school student who was murdered, viciously murdered, mutilated, stabbed to death, beat to death, left face down in the creek with no shirt, no shoes, and no coat in the dead of winter. Last January. And ever since that has happened to my family, I have been on a campaign to bring awareness to Jailyn's case, because we're still seeking justice for Jailyn. All of his killers have not been apprehended. They have not been charged. Even though the police know who they are, they don't have enough evidence to charge the people in Jailyn's murder. And then there are also crooked politics involved with Jailyn's murder case. So we're battling things from every side in Jailyn's murder investigation. But the main reason, I make it my business to come before people is so that men and women alike, parents, people, the community can come together and create a safe space for children again, for young people again. Create an environment where they don't have to kill or hurt or harm each other, where we can turn up the volume on awareness, self-awareness, on community engagement, the way our children communicate with each other. We just need our village back. Our village is very dilapidated, and our children are falling through the floor. They're falling through the cracks, and then that's our fault. That's our responsibility as the adults. So we have to figure out a way to engage with our elders, with the leaders of today, which will be us, and then our children, our youth who are going to come behind us. I think we spoke earlier about our elders can't even rest, can't even take their rightful position, in their seats, because things are out of balance.
Right.
And this generation, our generation, is so overworked. We have, not enough hours in the day to do everything, but still, this advocacy work needs to be at the forefront of our agenda. Our children are dying. They're dropping like flies. Our youth and young adults, 25 and younger. And we don't even understand it. We don't have answers for ourselves. So imagine the kids and what they must be feeling and what they're thinking and what they're going through.
Right.
And then we ask them to trust us, but we haven't figured out a way to protect our children. We ask them to do certain things. We put certain measures in place, but when they step outside of our doors, none of that matters.
Right.
Especially if 10 other children down the way are not getting the same structure.
That's right.
Are not being poured into it, not getting the same values. So my main concern is, how do we come together as a village to make sure that all children, regardless of if they are ours by blood or in the community, get this same level of care so that they can learn and know how to value each other. Our children don't know what valuing each other is, first of all, so we can't expect them to apply that to their everyday life. We can't expect them to do that because it has not been shown to them.
That's right.
We talk about the civil rights movement and we throw that in their faces, but they don't identify with that. They cannot identify with that. That's not their fight, right?
Right.
They're living under totally different rules today. And so just like our elders and ancestors had to be innovative in those times, we have to be innovative and find solutions for our time today. Because the new civil rights movement is not just white on black crime, right? It's black on black crime.
That's right. That's right.
A lot of people refer to my son, they say Jaylyn remind them of Emmett Till. The only difference between Emmett Till and Jaylyn is that white people murdered Till, and my own people murdered Jaylyn and left Jaylyn in the condition that they left him in.
Your story, and I was just minding my Black business, going on Instagram, and I came across this story. The thing about it is that I shared his missing persons case. Okay, I shared his missing person case. I didn't hear anything else about it. I did not hear that he had been stabbed over 100 times. I did not hear that he had been beat to death. I did not hear that he had his belongings taken from him. And I didn't see the picture of the end result of all of that. And I didn't, and also I didn't know your story of your fight. I didn't know the story of the fight that you had to do in order, I'm even in the midst, before this horrible thing even happened to Jaylyn, you had a fight on your hands. Let's talk about that, because these people need to understand that it's parents out here that fight hard to prevent these horrible situations from happening to their loved ones. And at the same time, it's our elected officials that don't hold their part of the bargain. So let's talk about your fight that you had. And I know this is painful because this is a fight that's still being fought. This is a fight where more people are getting involved. It's more, it might not seem like it's enough of us waking up, Alexis, but I'm telling you, that story, because that happened to Emmett Till in 1963 or something like that. Okay, but this happened in 2022. Okay, this is when this happened. So this is modern day. And like I said, this was not white folks. Excuse my language. And this is not type of disrespect to my white brothers and sisters who get it, and people in the fight and the struggle. This is not nothing to y'all, but I'm explaining something to you. Unlike Emmett Till, where white people were responsible for his murder, Jailyn Jones, five Black teenagers were responsible for his murder under the age of 17.
Some of them were over the age of 18.
Some of them were over the age of 18.
Mm-hmm. And this fight had just been an ongoing thing. A lot of Jailyn's civil rights as a student were constantly and repetitively violated. And right now, today, Jailyn would be here had the school not failed him, had they not failed to act. They denied Jailyn the right to remain virtual, to do virtual learning, which we knew all children, the children had the right to do. They told me that they didn't have enough accommodations for Jailyn for him to remain virtual. 3 months after he died, they would not allow me to come to the school to get the records. So they had the liaison, the what you call it, the student pupil personnel worker. They had her to bring the records over to the house, and they took their sweet time getting me the records, because I'm sure they had the records. But she told me, she said, Miss Jones, I'm sorry. She said, and Jailyn could have went virtual, could have stayed virtual, you know. And it took everything in me to compose myself, to keep my composure doing that. I mean, imagine somebody telling you that after the fact.
Right.
I went to a meeting at the school in August, and I also had a phone conference with the school about it. And I begged and I pleaded with them to allow Jailyn to remain virtually just a straight A student. He was he made student of the month 4 or 5 times. I mean, he was excelling as a virtual student. And so we knew and I taken Jailyn to a professional to see what was going on, you know, to kind of get a better understanding of what was going on with him. And they basically said it was the school environment. And I got to see that for myself during the pandemic. See, for us, the pandemic was a blessing, because Jailyn felt safe during at home. You know, he didn't have the anxiety. The anxiety only came when he had to go to school, into the public school system, because, like he said, they don't care. That was his last words to me. They don't care. And when he said it, his voice was so full of anxiety. No child should feel like that. No child, any school system, anywhere in the world, should feel like that. And I didn't even understand the magnitude of the deficit going on with the parents, because, as I've stated so many times, the parents is not up to code. That's one of the main problems with our children. So I wasn't even understanding that to that magnitude. I kept going to the Board of Education asking, why is this occurring in our schools? Why is this occurring in our bathroom? And as you will notice, in Montgomery County, they are now locked in the bathroom during school hours. You know why that is? Partly because of the case. Because Jailyn was jumped, kicked, and beat by 5 or 6 individuals at a time in the bathrooms at school, while the teachers were right there. In the hallways, the teachers are supposed to accommodate the student. You understand what I'm saying? And so my child is in a bathroom while the school is fully stocked with students as well as staff, screaming and yelling for help, and no help came.
Jesus Christ, Alexis.
And so, but every time, if he decided to take measures into his own hands and fight back, because as we know, self-defense is still on the book. Any attorney will tell you that. Jailyn was suspended. Jailyn was expelled from school, even though he was the victim.
Right.
Because the Laverne Kimball, who is the assistant to Dr. McKnight, who is the current superintendent of Montgomery County Public Schools, in the meeting, she said, well, Miss Jones, well, we don't encourage the kids to hit back. And I asked her a question. I said, well, Miss Kimball, I said, today, right where you stand, if I get up out of my seat and I slap you across your face, are you going to just sit there and take it? And she had to straight up tell me no. Because as a human being, we're not made to be anyone's punching bag.
Right.
But they expect our children to take it. And I thought Jaylyn's case was just, you know, this was just an individualized case. But come to find out, after Jaylyn died, Jaylyn was not this was not an anomaly. This had been occurring so much so that other parents had pulled their children out of school. And it's just that they did not know how to best advocate for their children. I was going to the Board of Education, being left in the lobby until the close of business. As they were turning the lights off, someone would come out and say, "We'll have somebody to call you tomorrow." And they would never call me. And if they wouldn't call, I would come back. I got so much red tape from the Board of Education, so much red tape, all because I was a parent who cared. And I felt like that was wrong in and of itself, because when you got a parent who's trying, when you have a parent who cares, when you have a parent who supports the school system and who just doesn't come up here when the child is in trouble, but supports her child throughout the educational process, you ought to work with those parents.
Right.
But they backdoor us too. Because in Montgomery County, it's all about how you look. It's about the perceived look of things. Prefabricated. You know how you build a home and you build these prefabricated boxes or a prefabricated fireplace or something like that? That's Montgomery County. It looked good, you know, but the bones of the house is not together. You understand? It's not up to code. You understand what I'm saying? It looks good on paper, but the bones of the house, the interior of the house is no good. The exterior looks great, but the interior of the house is no good. The wiring, you know, the septic. You get what I'm saying?
Right.
And that was my fight. And my thing is, I was always taught that there's power in numbers. So trying to get parents to join in and advocate has been like pulling teeth, especially when they look like me and you, right? Some of them just don't know. They don't know policy. They don't know how best to advocate for their children. But that's the whole point of we're trying to get them to come out to the meetings and things like this so that they can get the education in order to be able to apply this in school settings, whether your child is the bullied or the bullier. There are steps that you can take. Our children are taking guns into school, and yet the administration is telling our children they should come to them and tell them, and they'll protect them and keep them safe. The children say, and this is coming from the students of the same school that my son attended, from Northwest High School. They said, we don't trust the teachers. We don't trust our staff. They can't keep us safe. They can't keep nothing from happening to us. And I get why they say that, because Jaylyn and these students were sitting in the classroom with the boy who they have in custody for my son's murder. He was sitting next to my son in class with a ghost gun.
Jesus.
2 weeks prior to him killing Jaylyn. And they want these kids to come up to them and tell them what, when they can't protect them. Because these kids know that if they go up to the administration and say something, a lot of the security guards and stuff like that, they're family members of these boys in the school. Right? They know that they're going to end up like Jaylyn. They're scared that they might end up like my baby.
Mm-hmm.
And see, this is what Jaylyn was trying to tell me. But I didn't make the connection right then and there. I didn't know that our kids were that ruthless and that savage. I had no idea. I was living in my bubble, Ms. Rose.
I know. We all live in a bubble. I lived in a bubble for a very long time. I really did. Until, like I said, being an advocate and just the levels of the different cases that I have been in front of. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The level of that whole thing. And it's like, I tell people all the time, it is many levels to this thing right here. And I'm learning them as I go. I really am. I'm learning them as I go. And it gets worse and worse. And just when you think you can't believe one thing, or you say to yourself, I can't believe this happened. I can't believe somebody had this type of savagery. I don't even know if that's a word or not. Savagery in their hearts to commit such a heinous and just, I don't even have the words for it.
I can believe it now because I didn't know this boy from Adam. I didn't know these people from Adam prior to them killing my son. But upon investigation, upon people in the community coming forward who knew them and everything, students coming forward saying that this boy had done this to several other students, and yet he got a slap on the wrist. I'm talking about victims, the families of other victims who he was not, he didn't successfully murder them, but he attempted. He's threatened people with knives, put knives to their neck. He got a slap on the wrist and was allowed to come back into the school after a 3-day suspension. It could have been prevented. Just the simple step of letting Jailyn remain virtual because he didn't feel comfortable after what my son had to take drastic measures to protect himself. And guess what? He was kicked out of school. He had to end up going to an alternative program for 144 days because he protected himself.
What?
Yes, he did. But in that alternative program, it's funny because in the alternative program, Jailyn grades went up to straight A's. You know why? Because he was no longer in that environment. The school refuses to believe that the school grounds is a hostile environment for children. They refuse to accept their truth. The day they were pulling my child out of that creek, that boy shot that boy in the bathroom in Magruder. And they still refuse to admit it. They still refuse to admit that our schools here in Montgomery County, in the state of Maryland in general, Baltimore County, anywhere you go, PG County, that it's a hostile environment for children. And they can't depend solely on the administration to keep them protected because these people are organized. These students are also organized outside of school, in school. They run in posses and mobs and militias within the school, as well as outside. But outside is worse because they have adults who condone it. This boy's mother condones thugism. She's a part of it. I got video footage of that lady from this past weekend, in a go-go trying to fight.
You better stop.
I'm not playing. That same mother. And when people ask her about the trial, about that boy, oh, nothing. He just chilling, waiting on trial. He just chilling, waiting on trial. I got screenshots. Because for her, it's a game. And she called herself representing. She got his name shaved in the back of her head. You'll be home soon, son. Never once. I apologize, Ms. Jones, for my behavior and for what he did to your son. Never once. Not a brain, not an ounce of remorse. And then here to add insult to injury, we got to worry about them passing a bill that might get this boy off for the vicious murder that he committed against my son.
Good God Almighty.
Because now they try to pass a bill where if you're 25 and younger, you can't be held accountable for what you do because your brain is not fully developed. That's a piece of crap. I had a baby at 16. Okay? And I had to be responsible for that child. Nobody gave me a choice, a say.
Nobody gave you a choice. That's right. That's right.
And had I made a misstep, it would have taken that child from me. I had Jailyn at 20 years old. I knew what I was doing. I had 2 children. I took care of my children. I relocated here so that I could better provide for my children and give my children better opportunities. I didn't know if it would work out. I came here on a wing and a prayer. And until he entered middle school, it was peaceful until he entered middle school. Middle school is where they start, because you got to understand the gangbangers, the kingpins, they go after, they target. I met an ex-gang member who does work in the community now, who admittedly said that they target young kids. They go up to the schools, send their recruits up to the schools to recruit young boys and girls to be a part of their gangs. They are sending people to our children's schools to recruit them.
Jesus Christ.
Because they know that the punishment for those boys 13 to 15 is basically non-existent. They get a slap on the wrist. And Maryland, period, is just Montgomery County especially is just a slap on the wrist state for criminals. Okay? Mm-hmm. In Montgomery County, you know, you can rape a child and be out of jail in 2 years.
In 2 years, yeah.
A grown ass man can rape a baby and be out of jail in 2 years, but let me and you, law-abiding citizens, you know, even look the wrong way, they're gonna take us to jail and lock us up for 20, 30 years. You know, these people served me with an ERPO, Montgomery County. Came in my house without a valid search warrant, did not have a search warrant, and I refused the search because I know my rights.
Right.
They recorded me on tape 68 times saying, no, you cannot come in my house without a search warrant. Go get your warrant and come back. Oh, we're going to get the warrant. We're going to get the warrant. Well, when you get the warrant, you can come back. They refused to leave my house. They didn't even tell me. I was in New York. The detective knew I was in New York. What happened was I went over to the shoppers, over to the area, because we don't have an open lunch policy in our schools here. So the kids are not supposed to leave school during lunch. Hence the reason why I would bring Jaylyn lunch or try to give Jaylyn his lunch before he go to school, right? Because he didn't like the school food, which was free since school opened back up because of the pandemic, right? But Jaylyn refused to eat it because he said it was unethical. So I went over, I had discussed this with the detective, and I went over to the school to pass out information and to let the kids know that if they know anything, because the kids were talking from day one. They said that boy's name, Taquan Henderson, from day one.
Good God Almighty.
We found out about it. Students were calling, willing to talk, and got his name. They found Jaylyn on the 24th. On the 25th, I knew who Tay Tay was. They called him Tay Tay. So I went over to the shoppers to give the kids the anonymous tip line information, which the detective agreed that's a good thing. There was a police officer who had come to my house with Officer Larson and Officer PJ Gregory came to my house, and he said, you know, you a sister of mine, you know, your son is my son. We hate what happened to you. They gave me an envelope with a little cash in it. Gregory went out and bought the hat for Jaylyn's because he asked me, what are you on your way to go do? I said, well, I got to go get his clothes for his service, right? And he said, well, he's like, you know, let me do something. What can I do? I said, I got to go get him some clothes and I got to get a hat because they wanted Jaylyn to have a closed casket. They messed my baby up that bad. They opened up my baby's skull, exposed his skull in the front of his face and in the top of his head. Actually, the pictures that you all saw, they were good compared to what I had to see. You know, those were like, you know, rated, you know, those were, you know, rated T, rated teen, rated PG, you know, compared to what I had to see. And that was after he was embalmed and they had kind of filled it a little bit. But when I saw it, it was just raw meat, exposed, open, brain matter, open.
God Almighty. And
they exposed Jaylyn's skull in the top of his head, here, right in the middle of his head, and in the front of his face. And Jaylyn had open wounds. They stabbed Jaylyn in his eyes, in his neck, in his ears, in his hands. He had defensive wounds on his hands. He was so bad that they would not allow me to see my own child for fear that for fear that I might pass out or lose my mind over how bad he looked. They told me straight up, they said, Miss Jones, please, we can't, don't make us do it. We cannot, let us fix him up first. Don't look at him right now. And I said, I just want to hold his hand. So Miss Rose, they put him in a room. They had him fully covered. They had him still in the body bag. And they put a blanket over the top of it. They took his hand out. His hand had skin missing. So I can hold his hand for a few minutes, but they would not let me see him.
Oh my God. Jesus
That's
Christ.
how bad he was.
What do you tell these parents who to prevent them? What is something that you would say to these parents out here that is just allowing their children to just run rapid, not giving them no guidance, not giving them no support, no motivation, rewarding bad behavior, allowing them, making excuses for all of their bad behaviors? What would you tell these parents?
Be tough enough to ask for help. Because for some people, that's the hardest thing to do. Because what that means, criticism. You remember going to people in your family asking for help when you were young, and some people might have gotten backlash for asking for help, or might have been made to feel stupid or whatever. But these are your children, your innocent children. Never mind what your parents did to you. Never mind what you went through. Now you have a responsibility to make sure your children don't repeat the cycle. Have the courage to do for your children what your parents couldn't do for you. Or maybe you did have good parents. Have the courage to ask questions when you don't know. The only stupid question is the one you don't ask.
That's right.
You know, have the courage and have the integrity to want to break these generational curses for your children. You ought to want that for your child. If you love your child, you ought to want your child to live in a better world. And it ain't going to get better until you get about the business of making it better, but you can't change the outside until you change the inside.
That's right.
You got to change the way you think. And I know that's easier said than done, but here's my rap sheet. I come from Memphis, Tennessee. I come from two parents who have been incarcerated for most of my young life. When I go see my mama, I had to go see my mom was a max 8 prisoner. And when I saw my mom was shackled from head to toe. We couldn't even hug her. She had to sit in front of us and we couldn't do anything. They had to search us when we go in to see our mom. They have to do a cavity search on her when we leave. And my father spent when I say about child molesters, my father was my biological father was a second-degree child molester, raped a 9-year-old baby.
Good God Almighty.
Got 2 years and was sent to a halfway house. 2 years in prison. And this is how I know Maryland is a slap on the wrist state. And see, I won't even cover for him. I'm not even going to cover for him. You got to be strong enough to do for your children what your parents couldn't do for you. I know because I had to walk a mile in those shoes. I didn't want Jessica and Jaylyn to have to recover from their childhood like I did, because we got enough of that going on. You're not unique. You understand what I'm saying? It's happening to more of us than you think, than not. A lot of us are growing up in single parent households. You got a lot of good parents, but they working 2 and 3 jobs to provide. Right. So during the hours of 2 to 8, our children go out here and get in trouble because they have.
It then went out. I don't know if you can hear me. I don't think you can hear me, but it then went out. Something ain't right with this. What is going on with this live stream? I don't know.
Hello?
Can you hear
I can
me?
hear you now. I don't
Okay.
know whether the glitch.
For a minute, I had called you. When I had called you on the phone, it had went out. I don't know what the hell going on with this live stream today.
That's the
They can't see me or nothing. It's the devil all the
I was
time.
gonna say my grandma said when they don't want something to happen, you know, but you can't stop it. That means this is powerful. This is gonna help somebody.
They would do. I'm telling you, but it's okay. So I can imagine what's gonna go on this afternoon when me and Tanya go live to talk about this Prince George's County budget.
Okay.
But
you asked me, you know, what would I say to parents? And I said, you know, you got to get the courage to change. You figure out how to do everything else. You know, I'm pretty sure your parents didn't teach you about go-go music or none of this stuff. You learn how to go to the go-go's. You learn how to twerk. You learn how to do all of this stuff. You got to learn how to be a parent to your child. And that don't come with a manual. So you have to be courageous enough to ask the hard questions. Help me. How do I help myself to be able to help my child? If you care about your child, you're going to elevate. You're going to evolve for your children. Because I didn't always have the mindset that I do. You know, and I started out, you know, 14, 15 years old in a gang myself, you know, being a part of an organization. But by the time I was pregnant with my daughter, I knew that I didn't want to be a part of that anymore. I knew that this was not going to serve me in the long run. So I have to make some changes. As my mama would say, you got to SHIT or get off the pot, you know.
That's right.
And that's it. You just got to make up your mind and you're going to do the best you can to be a decent human being. See, you might be a single parent. And you might be worried about your sons as far as your son learning what it is to be a man. It's not your job to teach a boy how to be a man. They come here men. God gave them their issue when they were born. If he had male genitals, he's a man.
That's right.
Your job is to teach him how to be a decent human being. And you can effectively do that. You can effectively teach your child how to be a decent human being. And it's by example. Your children do as you do, not as you say.
That's right.
You have to value each other. Your children need to see you being kind to your neighbors. Your children need to see you putting your pride to the side and go asking for help when you need it. When I got here, I asked for help. I signed myself up for parenting classes for my little boy who was on the autism spectrum because I didn't know how best to serve him.
Right.
I had not even heard of the word. I was a young parent. I was 20 years old when I gave birth to Jailyn. I didn't have any guidance. I didn't have parents. I didn't have grandparents. I had no village. It was just myself and my two children. So I figured the best thing I can do is put my pride to the side. I could have been quiet. I could have struggled on my own, tried to figure it out and let my pride get the best of me and fail my children. Okay? And I could have just went on with the program that was given to me. Okay? All the ratchet stuff that I picked up on, okay? But I went and I knew enough to ask. My teacher told me one time, the only stupid question is the one you don't ask.
The ones that you don't ask.
I learned how to ask for help. I learned how to advocate for not only for myself, and that taught me how to advocate for my children. I wanted to learn how to be a woman. I wanted to learn how to be a mother and and just because you're a parent, your name is on your child's birth certificate and you might be doing the best you can do, doesn't mean that you are parenting your child correctly, that you are effectively parenting your child. You understand what I'm saying? Because you might be raising your child under the same guises and the same circumstances that you were raised under because that's all you know. And you think that's right. But that's what parenting classes come in at. And they teach you effective parenting, you know, what to do. you got to understand that your children are human beings. Though they might be little people, small people, they are human beings with minds, hearts, feelings. They think, for themselves. You have to give your children autonomy to be able to. And I was like, what is that? Now, keep in mind, my folks from Mississippi. So there's no such thing. Children are to be seen and not heard. You do as you do as I say, not as I do. That's the thought, the collective thought where I come from, right? But we know children gonna do as we do, not as we say.
As we say, that's right.
So you gotta have enough courage to ask for help.
That's right.
Then you gotta center yourself around effective parents. If you want to be a good parent, you gotta stop hanging out with the girl that's gonna leave her children at home to go to the go-go.
That's right.
You gotta go hang out with mothers who know how to be effective parents. Hang out with mothers who've done it. Hang out with mothers who have grown children who are successful, and fathers. Learn how to communicate and build. If you don't have a village for your children, build one. That's what I had to do. Jaylin had a mentor up in here every day. They were not his family members, but they were people in the community whose main objective was to provide support for our children. Jaylin had a big brother from Big Brother, Big Sister program, from wraparound services. He had Mr. Marcus from Big Brother, Big Sister. He had Mr. Ermias, who was from Ethiopia, but he's a state. He works for the State Department here, travels all around the world for the United States of America. Mr. J with A Better Future starts today, and now he heads the Montgomery County Department of Recs. He had Mr. Mason, and he had his therapist twice a week. And yes, he did have therapy. But Black people, a lot of Black people shun therapy, but I am pro-therapy. Therapists can get through to your children in ways that you cannot. And your children need somebody who's going to be objective, because your children feel that you're going to judge them. Your children don't want to disappoint you, because from the time they start school, they learn systems, point systems, grade systems. They learn all of these systems. And when they don't meet the criteria, what happens? They get a talk, they get reprimanded. So they learn point systems early on, right? Mm-hmm. They learn what disappointment is early on. Children don't want to do that. So if they have a therapist that they can talk to, somebody who can be objective, somebody who comes just for them, you'll find out so much about your children and so many ways you can help your children with that therapist. You understand what I'm saying? So Jaylin had Mr. Dean, who came twice a week, and then he had 3 other people coming 3 days a week, and then he had Mr. Lee, who would come to do stuff like take me to the hospital, because Jaylin has to have surgery. He got to be at the hospital at 5 o'clock in the morning. He would come say, hey, Ms. Jones, I don't want you to have to worry about that. I'm going to come and take you. So I had buffers in the community as well. You get what I'm saying? I made Jaylin acquainted with all the police officers in the area, so that he can know that these are human beings just like you. If they violate your rights, there's something you can do. But it's also your obligation to be respectful to them as well, because they have a job to do.
Right.
If they need to investigate something, you comply with the investigation as long as they don't, impose on you or break any rules or infringe upon your rights. Comply with the investigation. And even if they are wrong, comply with the investigation, and then you can handle that on the back end. You know what I mean? So these are conversations, things you talk about in parenting classes that you learn. That's how you able to help your children, especially when you come from communities like we do, where our parents might have been doing the best that they could, but it was not effective or correct parenting. You get what I'm saying?
That's what I tell people all the time. Like when our parents had us, they didn't have a clue.
They didn't
just like they did the best that they could, and they went through some trials and tribulations. But I can say mine ain't give up. Never gave up on me. And it, no matter how frustrating I might have made them, no matter what, they never gave up. They never put it on somebody else to be responsible for what for raising me, for installing stuff into me, for motivating me, for taking care of me. You know what I'm saying? And so being raised that way, it made me be the same way with my children. Because I didn't have a damn a directions book or directions or, you know, anything stamped on there behind.
No.
I was a mother at 17 years old. Coming in 17 years old when I first had my first child. My oldest child is 35 years old today.
Exactly.
My 30. And it ain't been easy.
No, because life don't come with a warning label. It doesn't come, you know, with a fine print. And how many of us do read the fine print if it do? How many of us know? And even when we do read it and we know these things, if you don't know how to apply it, it's still null and void. You know what I mean? You can know a lot of things, but if you don't know how to apply these things, then it's still void. You know what I mean? So that is why I went to parenting classes and stuff like that, because I wanted to break generational curses, but I didn't know the first step to take to be able to do that. You know what I mean? I know that my mom was a young mom. My mom, you know, Tupac said Brenda had a baby. Well, Miss Adele had two. Okay, my mom had 2 children by the time she was 16 years old. Her children are 10 months apart. My birthday was just February the 27th. My brother and I are now the same age until his birthday in April. Okay.
Wow.
My brother was also born with meningitis on the brain and yellow jaundice. Okay. So my mother was just, from the word go, my mom was stressed out. She was just a child. You know, I can remember being young and my mom outside flipping on the mattress with us, because while we're looking at her like mama, she was still a child. And so as I got older, I could have compassion for her and know that it wasn't her fault either, because somebody should have been protecting her innocence.
Right.
Because my mom was 14 when she got pregnant with my brother, 15 when she had him. She was 15 when she got pregnant with me, 16 when she had me. What did she know? And then her mother passed away when she was 20 years old, when she was only 20 years old. And after that, the family just was not the same. The aunts and uncles didn't come around and take over where their sister had left off. They just left them kids to themselves. So my mom and her siblings went into the streets. And at that time, the crack epidemic was prevalent.
It was prevalent, yeah.
And so they turned to drugs and alcohol to cope with losing their mom. And my mom lost her father too in 86. She lost her mom. She lost her dad in 86. I was 2 years old. She lost her when she was 18 years old. And she lost her mom in 88 when she was 20 years old. What does a 20-year-old know about life? You still need your parents. You still need guidance at 20.
Yeah.
You still need love at 20. But us looking at her, we didn't see that. We didn't know that she was a human being outside of the word mama. Because all we know as children is mama and the expectation of what that title holds.
What that title holds, yeah.
And so also in parenting class, you learn how to forgive yourself for what you don't know. You learn how to forgive that child is locked up inside of you, because you're doing the best you can with doing the best you can with the information that you have. So the first step is to learn how to forgive that stagnated hurt energy inside of you, in order for you to be able to effectively help your child. Now, I knew my son and my daughter would never have their fathers, because I dealt with their fathers at an age when I didn't even understand what relationships, love, any of that's supposed to look like, what it's supposed to mean. I didn't have my father. Every relationship that I knew and saw during that time was toxic. So, and also they were a lot older than me. I got pregnant with Jessica when I was 16. Her daddy was 27 at the time. I mean, I got pregnant with her at 15. He was 27.
Wow.
Jaylyn's father, I was 19 when I got pregnant with Jaylyn, 20 when I had him. His daddy was in his 30s. Jaylyn's father is 2 years younger than my mother.
Wow.
So they also play on that. But see, as young girls in our community, we're hypersexualized and we don't know what to look for when these predators, now we talk about R. Kelly, but our communities are running rampant with predators. It's just that they don't make the news. It's not highly publicized.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Now, men made, you know, we as Black girls, we have been put into situations where we had arranged marriages and all kinds of stuff. Shower weddings and all, you know what I'm saying? I mean,
and our parents,
that's been going on since our ancestors in Africa.
And you know, my mom, I left home at 14, you know, and my mom felt that it was okay because look at her situation. You understand what I'm saying? She felt that, you know, well, she grown, she can take care of herself. As soon as you start developing, you know, butt, boobs, where we come from, you know, your innocence is pretty much on the auction block. And I mean, I went to school with girls who were 11 years old, 12 years old and pregnant. You know, also, you know, I ended up going to foster care because my mom couldn't pass a drug test. And because of the situation, you know, missing so many days out of school, the truancy officer comes to the house. So they ended up taking me from my mom and putting me in state custody, which, you know, looking back on it was the best thing for me. But I didn't like it. But also what happened was these girls were coming into state custody virgins, right? Clean, and leave out of there pregnant with STDs, okay?
Yeah.
And we had to testify before the Senate and have St. Peter Villa shut down because these girls were getting pregnant by staff members, because this is supposed to be a state custody facility. You ain't did nothing wrong. It's just your parent is not up to code, right? But this place was like a penitentiary. We had to wear uniform. We had to walk in the line. We had guards who watched us while we took showers, watched us while we talked on the phone. We had 10-minute phone calls. They were conditioning us for prison because that's where girls like me are supposed to end up, right? So, but I defied the odds. This is why I don't deal with excuses, Ms. Rose, because if I can overcome that, you won't got no excuse. A lot of people, especially in this county, have access to opportunities and resources that we don't have access to in Memphis. You know, that you can't walk up in a place and get help with this and get help with that and get help with this and get help with that. And then here they deal with a gross sense of entitlement here, that they don't appreciate the gifts that they've been given, because it's so commonplace here that they think it happens all around the world when you got people living like they in a third world country right here in the United States.
Right here in the United States of America.
And that was my case.
Yeah.
And that was my case. And so I look at people all the time and say, you don't know how privileged you are. You don't know that these things that they helping you with, they don't have to help you with. It's not going on everywhere across the world. Trust and believe me, it's not. But here in Montgomery County, they deal with a gross sense of entitlement. And they don't appreciate anything that they have. We live in the reason why you would think that it goes on here is because they do a good job of cleaning things up here. If somebody throw paper in the street, they're going to come out and clean it up right away. They're not going to leave it. I was in Memphis when my mom died to bury my mom. And at the top of the week, this car was in the street, right? On Warford and Jackson. This car was in the street. At the end of the week, when we got ready to leave, this car was still in the street. But the sad part about it was that it was a body in that car.
Good God Almighty!
Trash stay on the sidewalk, on the curbs for months down there. Months. Cars sit in the middle of the street. Now I was thinking this a car that quit, and I just kept saying, "Oh, that's so trifling." You know, the police ain't gonna come out and move that car. That car had a whole body in it.
Lord have mercy.
That don't happen here in Montgomery County. See, they're gonna clean that right up. They're gonna scoop that right up. This is a big political county, so everything they do here, they sweep it under the rug real fast because they have the resources to do that. The fact that this county has resources means we have the power to change things like what happened to Jailyn. That's where we're fortunate. That's where I'm fortunate, more so than people in Baltimore County and PG County, because here in Montgomery County, they have the resources to help alleviate some of the burden, because you have big wage people in this county, right? What's his name that owned the used to be the Redskins?
Dexter Manley. I mean, Snyder.
Snyder. His home is here in Montgomery County. He is a Montgomery County. His home is in Potomac. That's Montgomery County. So his money comes to this county. Their children go to schools in this county. So they're all their imagine what kind of donations they give to our schools out here. You know, you got big budget, you got, you know, deep pockets out here in Montgomery County. So that's where we're fortunate. And this is why I don't deal with excuses. Because if I can come here and I can take advantage of the opportunities that's been given to me, and I'm basically an expat here, the people who've been here their whole lives have no excuse, but they make every excuse as to why they can't do this, why they can't do that. I come from nothing. I come from parents who didn't know how to. My father is a second-degree child molester. And I should be correct. The therapist said I should be correct.
Here we go again. Y'all. Let's do this again. I think we're going to have to close out because they're messing with us, y'all. They're truly screwing with us. This is just so sad. See. Y'all, I think I'm gonna have to end this live video. I don't know what's going on. Let me try to bring her on one more time.
I think I figured out what it was, Miss Rose. I think when somebody calls, it automatically mutes the
Okay.
call, and I'm not sure how I can block them from calling while I'm doing the live.
Well, you know, I know that you have been having some challenges with trying to get these other parents on board.
Yes.
Let's talk to them for a minute, because like I was telling you, I just think that, you know, it be our leadership sometime. And I mean, like within these organizations, they don't know really what to do. You know, we rely on a lot of these different organizations to help us, to put forth our, you know, to talk about and advocate for our issues that we're going through, you know, with our laws, with the fact we lost children and stuff. But it's like, you know, I know a lot of them, because I have worked with a lot of them, and I know a lot of them have just gave up hope.
The first thing you need to understand is that you have all the power. You hold all the keys to the kingdom, not the people outside of. We put so much accountability on the politicians and on the police and all of these things, but these people don't prevent these things from happening to us in our community. We do. Those people respond to things when they happen. And a lot of these people that you going to pleading your case to, they can't identify. They're not racist. They just can't identify with your cause, you know, because they're not as disenfranchised as we are. You know what I mean? So the first thing you have to do is establish a network amongst your own people like me and you. When we send out the clarion call to have people in our community to come out, they should come out in droves. Like this, because we had a meeting on the 7th last week, on the 7th of March. Only 2 parents showed up for that meeting.
Good God Almighty.
The up county director and the pastor of Mount Calvary. That was it. We're having it again on the 28th. Hopefully more parents will show up, because if you don't advocate for your child, how can you expect somebody else to?
That's right.
If you don't advocate for your community, nobody else is going to care about your community. They don't care about whether your schools are underfunded. They're not going to care about whether or not your children got heat in their schools, because that's not their issue. And how are they supposed to know if you're not bringing it to their doorstep? What we need to understand is that it's power in numbers. It's power in numbers. So we can go to the legislature. I can go to the legislation by myself, and what they're going to think is that this is an anomaly. That this is just one isolated case. But
I try to explain this to these people, Alexis, all of the time. That's how they look at it. Or if we're going to speak on an issue and we don't have the people that we're speaking of behind us, then it just looks like we're troublemakers.
Just show up. There are people who can speak, who are eloquent enough to speak for you. We got Miss Sweat, who, came out the gate from the moment she heard about my son's case. From the moment you heard about my son's case, a lot of people, everybody in this county, if you are a person of color, you need to know who Miss Rose is, and you need to know who Miss Tanya Sweat is. You need to, and there are many of you out here. The fact is, you don't get the support. You're not getting the shares. You're not going viral because you're not twerking, or you're not rapping drill music and things like that. We don't support each other when it's for real and necessary causes, until, like you said, something happens to one of us. Then we
one of us. I tell people all the time, I've been down this road. I've been advocating for 30 years. Man. And it took me 30 years to get to this place where I understand what my advocacy is all about. See, it's been that sharing flyers and all of that. It's been bigger than that.
It's bigger than that.
Gate for me, and I've gotten to a place, because in my progress of advocacy and understanding the levels of it, what I need to provide is about providing resources.
Yes. And when resources is education on policy.
Did I tell you?
Yeah. You told, from the moment you met me, you said you no longer have to walk this road alone. And that was what I needed to hear, because when you're grieving, a lot of times you're not focusing on the help. Because see, for me, I wasn't focusing on somebody helping me. I was just doing whatever steps I needed to take on my own. That's why we started the social justice page for Jailyn, the Justice for Jailyn page, social media. I did have some of his alumni from his school come out and help me do that, set up the page. A shout out to all the kids. It was the kids who stood behind me. There was not one adult. There was not one adult who came to this house and sat with me and helped me to do all the things that we needed to do socially to get the word out about Jailyn. Those were young people under the age of 25 who came and sat in this living room with me, and we went through every detail together. Students. So don't tell me that students are not powerful. It was the students that started, the SELC. It was the students who made the difference in the civil rights movement. It was the it's so much power with our young people. When you lose one young person, you losing 10,000 men, the equivalent of 10,000 men. So,
yes, you are.
So you lose Jailyn, and we also lose this boy who's incarcerated. We also lose him too. So we lost the power, the strength of 20,000 people with just these two people.
Right.
And you don't seem to get how powerful and how much of an impact that makes, how much of an impact that's going to have on us as a community.
Yes, indeed.
When I went to the town hall meeting a few weeks ago, I shared it. I asked people to show up. We were not there in numbers, but the Hispanics, the Jews, the Caucasians, everybody was there in numbers except for us.
Except for us, yeah.
But we are the chief complainers whenever things happen and we get left off the ballot. We get left off of everything that happens around because we don't show up for each other. When that happened to Jailyn, people came from all around. Y'all in PG County, y'all not even out here in Montgomery County.
Right.
And y'all rushed across the border. It didn't matter to y'all. And that's what has to happen. And all of this, we live here together. We're family. We live in this community. In this state, we live together. And if we get this right, if we do this right, what I believe is going to happen is that this is going to transcend borders. This is going to have a global effect if we do this right. Because think about this. This is the nation's capital. So we have an advantage. You know, we have a privilege that not everybody else has around the world. And if we do this right, if we come together and we can get this right, we can be effective. And it's going to be powerful and it's going to change lives across the board. Because
that's right. Y'all hear that?
We can't fight. We can't fight the real war. We can't fight this real war against us with big pharmaceutical companies and, you know, this war on us because of our melanated skin, which is still in effect. And even this music, all of this deaf culture that we represent as our culture right now, that's all a part of that eugenics plan too. They only put that in our communities for us to destroy each other. They found out how to turn us against each other instead of them getting out doing all the dirty work and getting their hands dirty, right? Because you don't hear Jews listening to drill music. You don't hear the white people in Potomac listening to drill music, right? Saying hey Sarah, I'm gonna kill you today. That's only us. That only goes for us.
That's right. That's the truth.
The way y'all left my baby down in that creek. After I put my life on the line for Black people, after I was almost shot and killed by a racist police officer. And not all police officers are bad. I have a niece who's serving on the Memphis police force right now, and that girl get up every day and do her best, put her best foot forward. She try to treat everybody right. We come from a family, just from a background where her grandmother was my foster mom. She took in kids like me in the community, didn't ask no questions. And if it were not for that lady, I don't know where I would be. You understand what I'm saying? Because my mama was young, she just couldn't do it. My mom was on drugs. I didn't have a safe space, and it was that lady and her husband who created a safe space for me. When they children brought me around, she didn't ask me no questions. You hungry? Go in there and get you something to eat. You ain't a visitor now. That's the first thing she gonna tell you when you come in her house. She fix your plate that first time. The first time you come in her house, she'll fix your plate. After that, she don't fix no more plates for you. You go in there and get it yourself because you family. And that's everybody in that community will tell you about them. When my mama would call the police and send them around there, she would say, "It ain't your daughter. Your daughter ain't doing nothing. She around here." You know, so we need people like that. And my niece comes from that environment. So she know how to deal with people in the community because she don't have real world experiences with people in our community who suffer from deficits like that. I'm one of the people who did. That's why I don't deal with excuses. Even with my own children. I told my children, if I can overcome this, you can.
You can too. That's right.
And I have an expectation of you just like you got expectations of me. You expect me to keep the lights on. You expect me to keep the water running. You expect me to keep food in your refrigerator. You expect me to respect you and love you. You got to do.
That's right.